Hello everybody, how you doing? Okay, welcome to a place called Mayford near Woking. Now I've come to do a shoe-off today between the Alphafly 3s, you might have seen my video, I'll link it up there, and the Vaporfly 3. I've got 8 by 3 minutes with little rest in between and then some strides at the end. So I'm going to do the first 4 in the Alphafly 3s. And then swap over to the Vaporfly 3s for the last 4 reps and also some strides afterwards as well. Right, so it's quite windy today, so I've got my Rode mic on as well, see if I can get some better quality. Hope it doesn't fall off in the wind, but not feeling that great, so not sure how this will go, but we'll get going in the Alphaflys, get 1 or 2 under the belt and then see how we can do. Just want to sort of see how they compare. I'm not expecting the Alphaflys to win me over, but on this sort of session, well, it needs to be an acid test, doesn't it? See how we go. Okay, 2 down in the Alphafly 3s. Not sure if it's just me or the wind or the day, but just seems a bit of a struggle today. 6.87 pace on that second one there. So the wind is not too bad, but it could be better. I mean, the shoes kind of felt okay, but I felt a bit more sort of toe off feeling than I did in my 3 by 10 minute session the other day. Maybe I'm just getting a bit more used to them, but I still feel they're quite a lot of shoe for me, 290 grams, which is an awful lot of shoe considering the stack height and just the sort of like the over engineering of it. I think not particularly comfortable, I would say. I can feel my right toe a bit against the plate. I think they're the right size for me, got UK 13 and everything. Anyway, so I've got another 10 seconds and then we're off again. 3 down on this country lane here. Bit of a headwind, so I'm walking back to get a bit of a head start. It's a nice little loop this. It's just under a mile, so it's just almost get 2 reps in. Have to be a bit of overlap. Right, how long I've got? Another 48 seconds. So I'll come back here. This is into Mayford here on the edge of Woking. Not sure how good a session this will be, but sometimes when you're not feeling great, you need to get it done and hope that your shoes work for you, don't you? These they sort of feel like they're over quite quickly. I've already done 3 out of 8, so next one I'll be changing shoes and then we're already halfway, so think of that positively for sure. Right, see you when I've got the Vaporfly 3s on. Okay, first run done in the Vaporfly 3s here. And boy, so much sort of lighter feeling, like a softer feeling as well. Not feeling the plate so much in this one, which may be good, may be bad. But just felt like so much sort of easier, really. I think I actually ran a bit further than I did on the first rep of the Alphafly 3s. Definitely did feel easier. Well, I suppose it should do, really, isn't it, this sort of thing, but it just sort of shows that the narrower feel, the lighter feel, well, it's not lighter feel, it really is lighter, seems to work better for me. But so 3 more to go, then we'll reserve judgment until we get to the end, I think. Okay, 1 more to do. I didn't quite catch the time there, but just sort of feel it just felt so much easier, even though I'm on the 1 for last rep and that much tighter. So we're just going to look at the stats later, see how it really compares. But yeah, I think a win for the Vaporfly 3, hands down for me, which is perhaps no surprise. Anyway, last one to do. And I got some 30-second strides at the end, which I think I'll keep the Vaporfly 3s on for. Okay, session done. I've taken shelter under this bike shelter because it started to rain and I'm using my head torch as a bit of an improvised torch. But yeah, no difference. I'm just having a quick look at the cursory splits. About 640s in the Alphafly 3s and about 620s in the Vaporfly 3s. So yeah, on that evidence alone, a massive win for the Vaporfly 3s, which borne out was what I was feeling on my feet. Anyway, let's go inside, have a look at the spreadsheet, and we'll talk a bit more. Okay, so just before I look at the spreadsheet, it's just a quick reminder of what I actually did. So I was in the village of Mayford here. I parked at the Village Hall car park, and I did 8 by 3 minutes with 90 seconds rest. The first 4 in the Alphafly 3s, and then I switched over to the Vaporfly 3s for the last 4. So I started from the Village Hall, did my 3-minute interval, basically got to about here, which is on this country lanes, Smarts Heath Road. It just changes into a delimit zone, there's no pavement. So I stopped about there, sort of walked back a bit, and then the next rep was basically up Goose Lane here, which is a nice little quiet country lane. And then I got back to about the Village Hall, and then that was 2 reps. So I keep going around this loop 4 times altogether, and then I did finally some strides up Goose Lane at the end. Interestingly, the Woking track here is just up the road. I haven't actually been to that track yet, so that's my ambition for the next couple of weeks, I think, to see if I can do a track session there. Okay, this is a rather busy spreadsheet. I tried to sort of colour code this a bit. So my pink Vaporflies here, and the sort of the proto with a bit of the orange in the Alphafly 3. So I hope you can read this. So basically in the 3 minutes, I wasn't really having any particular target in these things. I just sort of try to run these to field and see how I can get on. I suppose sort of broadly around about 10k speed, maybe down to 5k speed if I'm feeling good. I think the most interesting thing straight away here is that in the Alphafly 3, I basically averaged 639, and it wasn't really for want of trying. I just felt like I couldn't really get going. Although my heart rate was quite low, I just couldn't seem to feel like I could get going. And so when I turned over to the Vaporfly 3s, even though my heart rate was high, I think that was entirely attributable to heart rate drift, then all of a sudden I was suddenly running 20 seconds per mile quicker. So I basically went on an average of broadly 640s to 620s, which is 20 seconds a mile, which is considerable difference in speed. I mean, that's basically a whole race distance. That's about the difference between going from 10k speed to 5k speed without really having to put in any effort just because you're changing shoes. So I think it does rather illustrate the fact that the Alphafly 3s don't really work for me. Now you might think, well actually Tim, well surely you just tried harder when you put the Vaporfly 3s on, because all these heart rates here, the average and the max, were going up rep by rep. And that is true, but also you've got this thing of heart rate drift where when you start an effort, fresh, and then you keep going at steady effort, your heart rate will naturally just rise and rise and rise. And I felt that was very much the case. To illustrate the point, this is my last park run when I just dipped under 20 minutes at Brooklands, and you can see how my heart rate starts off quite low and just basically throughout the 20 minutes, or just under 20 minutes, just rises and rises and rises very gradually. So I think that was exactly what was happening in the session. So let's have a look at some of the other metrics. And now the gap pace here was fairly similar to the normal pace. It was very slightly downhill for the outward section, but that had perhaps slightly more of a headwind, and then it was very slightly uphill coming back, but then I had a bit of a tailwind, so I think they kind of evened it out. I did also create these 2-minute segments to actually have the bit of each of the rep. I did exactly the same each time just for additional comparison, and again you can see here that I was definitely a bit faster in the Vaporfly 3s than I was in the Alphafly 3s. Having a look at some of the other metrics, you see the power here. I think basically the power was lower in the Alphafly 3, I was going slower, 415. This is Garmin power. I think my weight's been creeping up a bit, just under 75 kilograms I am now, 74.7 I think, so I think I need to see if I can get that back down a bit again. You can see here that the vertical oscillation in the Alphaflys was a bit higher than it was in the Vaporfly 3s, which I suppose is kind of expected because the Alphaflys are really, really bouncy, as you would say, although I'm not entirely sure whether that's something to do with the fact that it's slightly different speed, but ground contact time is very, very similar. That was quite interesting, and the ground contact time balance all seemed to be slightly over to the left, but interestingly at the end I was meant to be doing 4 by 30 seconds with a minute rest, and then I saw an opportunity to have a bit of a segment blast, so I basically did the last 2 reps without having any rest and just about got the segment that was going back up Goose Lane with a slightly helping wind. But it's interesting when I'm going sort of flat out, as it were, well not quite flat out but certainly a lot harder effort, that my ground contact time balance here was almost even. So it's an interesting sort of thing that, well, when I'm sort of running optimally efficiently as fast as I can, or more or less, then I seem to be even here, whereas I'm going a bit slower, more like 5k, 10k pace. It's got slightly lean to the left. I don't know quite why that is, and I haven't really observed that before, but I thought it was interesting to say. It was quite windy yesterday because it was just before the storm we had last night, but I must say it didn't really feel too bad. I think there's quite a lot of shelter on that course with the trees and the houses, so yeah, it could have been a lot worse to be honest. But yeah, 22-mile-an-hour winds according to the weather forecast, and once it was a bit warmer, but the winds sort of made it feel a bit colder. So what else can we see? Cadence. Well, cadence was considerably lower in the Alphaflys. Again, I think that's partly the fact that I was going faster than the Vaporflys, and I think I noticed in the past that the Alphaflys do promote a slightly lower cadence, just the fact that it's more shoe. So I think that in a way is perhaps more to my natural cadence in the Vaporfly 3s, and I'm allowing to get going a bit. Sometimes I feel my cadence is almost a bit too high, but certainly when I'm going for it, I feel like to get a nice leg turnover. And if I'm really sort of sprinting here, I'm into the mid 190s. Stride lengths, you see, yeah, I mean, it's around about 131, 136. Again, it's just a function of going a bit faster, and then 159 when I was going the very fastest, just about a 5-minute mile, basically. So yeah, I think this does rather prove that the Vaporfly 3s work somewhat better for me than the Alphafly 3s. Now you might think, well, the Alphafly 3 is more of a marathon shoe and have to do this over a longer trip, but I think the 4 by 3 minutes is long enough to sort of get a feel. And yeah, it was almost like I did that session of 3 by 10 minutes last week, and I kind of almost thought that I didn't really want to run them too much further than these shoes. Interesting though, that placing that session wasn't too bad, about 7:10, but it just felt like hard work. So yeah, what do you make of this then? Which shoe of these two do you think you would do best in this session? Maybe swap the Alphafly 3 to the Alphafly 1 or 2 if you have those, or swap the Vaporfly 3 to the 1 or 2 again if you don't have those. But basically on a Vaporfly versus Alphafly test on a session like this, which one do you think you would go best in? And would it be so clear cut as it was for me? Anyway, I hope you found this interesting. Like and subscribe on that, and see you in the next one then. Bye.